Right.
That way, and I'm in my car today.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
Yeah, look
I'll
at that. How's the traffic?
Oh, well, I'm not driving, so I'm just waiting. My son's girlfriend had to go to the hospital, so I'm gonna be, yeah, I'll be probably having to pay attention over there for a little bit and just waiting for some info.
I see. I thought Julie had just banished you outside.
Yeah.
Is she okay, Sam?
Oh yeah, she's good. She's good. She's just she's had a lung issue, so she wanted to go have that checked out. And
Sorry to hear that.
I know if I tell Zachary's not afraid or Zachary's not scared, but okay, well, if he's not scared and she's not scared, we're the ones that are nervous, but
it's nice to see everyone.
Right. We got two mayors in the room now.
I defer to the honorable mayor of the city of Claremont, Jennifer Stark.
Oh, well, former mayor.
Oh, and we have former
and the
mayors.
former, yeah, there are a lot of mayors here actually.
Long time no see. Tim, how are you?
Did you ask me how I'm doing, Jennifer? Oh, I'm tired.
How's that baby?
It's related. I mean, I have an 11-month-old that's going to be a year next month, and it's been the most amazing, beautiful life experience I've ever had.
They're a lot of fun.
But I'm tired.
Yeah.
I bet.
Yeah. So thank you for asking, Mayor Stark. And
Hey, Tim, and
Excited to meet him.
go ahead, Sam.
I was going to tell you that in Claremont, you could throw a rock and hit a mayor, and even by accident.
How about pro tems too? There's a pro tem here.
Well, hey, Tim, I feel like I just saw you at noon.
I actually work with, well, look at that. Now I know who all the Democrats are on the city council. I worked very closely with, I worked closely with all three of them, but particularly with Ed on transportation and then Jed on housing. And what an amazing group that you have there. And I feel very honored to be able to work well with all of them, particularly the three that are on this Zoom call. I hope I'm not missing somebody else. There might be are there any other members of the city council? You might have a Brown Act violation, don't you?
Yeah, I think we, let's see, who else is, it's hard to tell. Unfortunately, I'm on my cell phone, so it's a little harder to tell like who's on.
Yeah, understood.
We're not going to be talking about city business.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
Never.
We're here to listen to you, Tim. Hear what you have to say.
I hope everyone has their pillows. It is late, and I've been known to put some people to rest. So I hope you have a nice, comfortable place that you're sitting at.
Let's see. So, is everyone having any problems with the connection?
Not me.
No.
I mean, it's hard. Obviously, if you're on, I think you're okay, but I think like I mentioned already, we are, it's recording already, just so that everyone knows. The meeting will be available via our Facebook and our website, just so that if anyone wants to refer back to the meeting and hear the presentations. So welcome everyone to our general membership meeting. We have a packed agenda, and so we'll go ahead and get started. Everyone could hear me okay?
Yep.
Awesome. I'll be admitting people as we move along, so that's why you're seeing my my screen going back and forth to me, and then also back to my picture. But let's see. Do we have Bob and Peggy Nelson on?
I don't see him.
Okay, I was sending some people the link a little while ago.
Thank
Uh,
you.
Cool. All right. Well, welcome again to everybody. And as I'm talking, I'm trying to look for our agenda. Hopefully everyone got a copy of the agenda and the minutes. But I think first on the agenda, we do have a presentation that Chris is going to introduce for us. But again, we do have a packed agenda, so we'll go ahead and get started. And with that, I'd like to introduce our vice president of for all these presentations that we have been getting, including tonight. So with that, Chris will do the intro for the wonderful mayor of Pomona. Chris.
Yeah, tonight it's my great pleasure to introduce to us all Tim Sandoval, the current mayor of our neighbor Pomona. And Tim's lived in Pomona ever since he's been 9 years old. He's lived there for over 30 years, 35 years. And he first won election as mayor in 2016 and was reelected recently in 2020, both times with about 62 to 63% of the vote. He ran on a platform of inclusiveness, sustainability, and fiscal responsibility. So interesting, those phrases come up time and time again from city to city. There's a lot more that I could say, but I'm going to let Tim take over from now. Tim's going to be presenting on Pomona and Claremont, challenges and opportunities.
Chris, thank you for that introduction. I appreciate it. And thank you for the 2 hours that you've given me to speak to. I'm kidding. I'm not going to take 2 hours. I do want to thank you and thank the Democratic Club of Claremont. I appreciate you having me this evening, and I really look forward to the Q&A part where you all can grill me on my views and my policies and anything you want to share. I look forward to it, but just thank you for having me. What I thought I'd do, and I don't know if this is okay, but what I thought I'd do is just share a little bit about my background, because that really helps to inform my political views, my lens by which I see the world. And I think by me sharing that part of myself, that you'll better understand some of the things that I'm trying to accomplish in Pomona and the region. And I always start with the fact that back in the mid 60s, and I had yet to be born, back in the mid 60s, my father, who had graduated from San Fernando High School in 1957, when there were very limited opportunities for Mexican Americans, my father worked various jobs, but he got a job with Head Start as a janitor. And my father never saw himself as a professional. It was just where the country was at that time, and saw very limited opportunity. And he gets a job with Head Start as a janitor. And it happens that there's a professor who's directing the Head Start program from a school called San Fernando Valley State College, now called Cal State Northridge. And he said to my dad, my dad was 30, a father of two, I'd yet to be born. He said, Miguel, I can help you go to college. And my dad who lived in the projects in Pacoima, San Fernando Gardens, originally from New Mexico, never ever in his wildest dreams thought he could go to college. And this man, Warren Furamoto, who was at Northridge, helped my father go to Cal State Northridge. And my dad went to Northridge, and he happened to meet a young professor at the time. My dad was only 6 years younger. A professor named Rudy Acuna, Dr. Rudy Acuna, who wrote one of the seminal books in Chicano studies called Occupied America, was my dad's mentor, was my dad's professor. And my dad, being a bit of a homeboy, said to Dr. Acuna, well, what should I do next after he graduated? And Dr. Acuna said, we need more Mexican-American teachers. And so my father was one of 20 students selected to go to USC and to do a master's degree in urban education. Of course, I was born in 70. by the time I became a conscious little boy, my father was already towards the tail end of his college career at USC. And I remember living in Pacoima. In Pacoima, you didn't really see any buildings higher than 2 stories. And I remember getting to the USC campus and thinking, wow, this is a truly, truly amazing place. I remember seeing a building that was in the clouds to me, and it had a globe on top of the building. And I thought maybe that must be a planet. I mean, that was just my 4-year-old's eyes. That's how I saw the world back then. And I remember going in that building, and I didn't realize at the time, but they were actually closing that center. But I remember walking out with some building blocks, some Legos, and a Mexican sombrero. This was back in 1974. And I knew right then and there I wanted to go to college. And why do I share this with you? Well, it happens that by the time my dad finished his studies, we moved to Pomona back in 1980. It was his first job as a teacher. And it was also the same year that my brother, my oldest brother and my only brother, was arrested and ended up serving 34 years in prison. And how was it possible that you had me and my brother, age difference of 8 years? Why the different path? Why did we go in different directions? And I've spent a good part of my life thinking about that. But one of the things that was clear is that my brother had a tremendous amount of instability with my parents. He witnessed things that I never witnessed. And consequently, he got in trouble and consequently ended up in the prison system. And I grew up under stability. I had opportunities that my parents exposed me to that were critical to my development. And that included being able to buy their very first home in Pomona in 1980 for $56,000 over on San Bernardino Avenue. And so for me, it was clear that from my long time experiences of growing up in the city, that I realized that if I was ever going to be able to do anything of any significance, I needed to take my education seriously, because I know my brother and my sister didn't have those opportunities. And so ultimately, I found my way to UC Riverside, which is where I graduated from. But in that process, so the lens by which I see the world is through that working class experience of growing up in a household where I had a brother in prison and I had a sister who was a teenage mom, and just some of the challenges of a working class family, even though my father was a school teacher later in life. And then a second experience that was really seminal in my development was, while I was in college, I met a man from Jamaica who was a professor at Chaffey Community College, who was a Jamaican Marxist. And at the time, I didn't know what a Marxist was, had no idea. I heard good things, I heard bad things. But he ended up becoming a mentor for me for over 20 years and really helped me to understand how the capitalist system works. And one of the things he said, if you want to fix something, you better darn well know how the system works. If you want to understand the origins of racism, you want to understand the origins of all the range of issues that we have in this society, the social contradictions, you have to understand how the system works and how it benefits some and it doesn't benefit others. And so he had us reading the LA Business Journal, the Wall Street Journal, I was a working class kid from Pomona. I didn't think that folks like me read the Wall Street Journal. That was something that business people did. That is something that others did. It wasn't a part of my upbringing. And Trevor Campbell is his name, introduced me to a whole new world of understanding how society works. And he wasn't a dogmatist in the sense that he was just saying workers of the world unite. He was really trying to teach us how the economic system worked and how it impacts everyday life. And I am forever grateful to him. But one of the things it did do is it led me to the work that I'm doing today, which is as mayor, which is back in 2002, 2003, Trevor's wife had a very, very wealthy cousin who helped to form a program in Pomona called Bright Prospect. And Bright Prospect started out as a program that primarily was helping students get into selective colleges all over the country, like Swarthmore and Amherst and Williams. And the reality is our kids had never heard of these schools, but those schools wanted to diversify. And we went from serving 12 students to over 3,000 students in the 15 years that I was there. And the thing that I had fought for while we while the program existed, was I wanted to make sure that we reached more students, and particularly our undocumented students. And so I fought with tremendous support from the organization is to make sure that we opened up the program to any student, but particularly to our undocumented students. And consequently, we grew the program to over 3,000 students, and the graduation rate from college is 91%, which is unheard of amongst first generation students. And in fact, when you had that situation arise with some very, very wealthy actors and actresses who were sending their children and getting their children into selective colleges and UCLA, a response to that was the programs that are doing it right. And People magazine featured about 8 efforts across the country that were getting it right, and Bright Prospect was right at the very top of the organizations that are doing a tremendous job. Why is that important? Well, I believe that the most reliable vehicle out of poverty is education. And so when I look at Pomona, and I think about Pomona, I think about its relationship to Claremont and Laverne and San Dimas, the Pomona Valley, if you will, is I think about it in terms of how do we help uplift particularly the most vulnerable community members in the city of Pomona, utilizing the resources that we have regionally. And let me explain. One of the things that I think people don't always understand is that Pomona is critical to the region. When somebody has a catastrophic injury in Claremont, where do they go? They go to Pomona, and very likely Pomona Valley Hospital. When they have a Social Security issue in Laverne, where do they go? Perhaps they go to Pomona. If you have an issue around jobs benefits or unemployment, where do you go? You come here to Pomona. If you want to, everybody would love to maybe perhaps send their child to Harvey Mudd College, which is the most expensive California college in the country, but perhaps they can't send them there, so they send their son or daughter to Cal Poly Pomona, which is a school that serves working class, particularly working class youth. And so I say it because it's Pomona's health is so critical to the region, and we serve more than ourselves. And I'm incredibly proud of the fact that the city of Pomona is a city that serves more than itself. And keep in mind that we also have a housing stock that is able to support some of the most vulnerable community members who cannot afford to live in all the communities. I love Claremont, right? Housing costs in Claremont are very expensive, as they are in Laverne and San Dimas as examples. And yet Pomona, this regional city, has stepped up because its leadership chose to not only serve itself, but to serve the entire region. So as I think about this relationship with Claremont, and I have a really, I think a really great working relationship with the council, particularly Jennifer and Jed and Ed, is what does that relationship look like in the future? I'd like to spend some time talking about that when we do Q&A, but I will say this is that Pomona's health has a direct impact on Claremont. It has a direct impact on Laverne and San Dimas and our surrounding communities. And so what does that mean for me as mayor, right? Well, let me just take you back a little bit when I first became mayor. You may recall that Trump was elected in November 2016. It was the same year that I was elected. And there were a lot of unknowns, but the rhetoric towards the immigrant population was very, very negative. And I remember being at Gary High School. I was there to speak to a group of parents to reassure them that we as a city will not cooperate with any federal agency that tries to undermine our community. And in fact, we passed an ordinance stating unequivocally our support for the California Values Act, which was to send a strong message that we will not cooperate with any effort to undermine our community. And that's how I started off as mayor. And then the next comment was, well, Mayor, are you going to come clean my alleyway? Right? So we're talking about these big, so the things that Pomona residents want are the same things that you all want, right? They want to be able to have a safe community. They want to have clean parks and parks they can send their children to. They want to have a good education. They want clean, pothole-free streets. They want, and one of my mentors said is, working class people want the very same things that wealthy families have and get to enjoy. They want after school programs. They want summer programs. They want to be able to have their children experience all the things that the very wealthiest members of our community have. And that always stuck with me. And so for me, how I've spent my time as mayor is I'm really trying to create the conditions in the city so that we put our resources to moving towards ending what I would say childhood poverty in the city. The reality is that if we can improve the life and the living conditions of our poorest community members, that helps to uplift the rest of the community. And I have some members of the community who believe that, well, you pick yourself up off your bootstraps and, you know, you figure it out yourself. And I don't believe that. I believe that it's important to be able to provide resources and support for those people who are in greatest need. And in fact, I would argue that it actually helps those folks who are living in some of the communities who may not see the value in that. And one could tie that to your property value. In other words, if we lift everyone, it's lifting the entire community. And it's the right thing to do. It's the just thing to do. And it's where I spend a tremendous amount of my energy as mayor. So I can certainly talk more about the things that I want to see. I appreciate the fact that we were able to get the street repaved on Town Avenue that borders Claremont and Pomona. And we were able to get a street that was repaved going into Claremont that always kind of symbolically reminded me of the relationship between Claremont and Pomona. And so, Chris, I've talked probably longer than you wanted me to. You said about 15 minutes. So what I thought I'd do is just give you just a little overview, and then I'd love to just be able to take some questions. I tend to operate much better when you're asking me questions than delivering a presentation. So I'll go ahead and end it there, Chris. Thank you.
Okay, Tim, thanks for those remarks. So let's just establish some rules here. I've found in my experience that it works best if people
Chris?
Yes.
Is there name calling at all that goes on in these kinds of dialogues and discussions? Okay, I know. Yeah, there's no.
If people just raise their hands and
Sure.
If you raise your hand and if you go to the bottom right and see the reaction button and click there, there's a button to raise your hand. And we'll let people go in the order that they see their hands up. And I'll just step in the background and I'll intervene only if someone keeps getting skipped over. So it looks like it's Catherine, Jen, and Karen. Go ahead. Or Don, go ahead.
Yeah, Tim, you mentioned cleaning alleyways and so.
Hi, Don. Hi, Catherine.
Hi. So when does Pomona Beautiful start up again? I see on Facebook where people are cleaning things, but you know, we're in a pandemic and you said to hold off.
Yeah.
When and now I'm busy on Tuesday mornings delivering food for God's Pantry. So
yeah. So Don, so just so you know, one of the things that I started back up when I became mayor is this effort called Pomona Beautiful. And I borrowed it from an effort in Azusa by Mayor Rocha. And all it is it's a group of community members who go out and clean, just pick up trash every Tuesday and Saturday mornings. And Don was a part of that. And so just to let you know, Don, that we will be starting back up next Tuesday, April 6th. We got the clearance that we could go. We're not going to advertise it. We're just going to go with our regulars. What some of us, because I deliver food on Tuesday as well to community members. So I'm just going to do that after the cleanup. Of course, I'll make sure I wash up a little bit and we'll get that food delivered. But it's going to be next Tuesday, April 6th at 8:15 a.m. in front of City Hall. Is Mayor Stark next?
Yeah, Jen, just unmute yourself and go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Tim, thank you so much for sharing your beautiful story. And I just want to say on behalf of Claremont that we know how important Pomona is and how, I mean, Pomona is in a lot of ways the mother of Claremont, being where Pomona College began. And we would not be the town that we are without those colleges. And so I would really like to know what we can do explicitly to help make that really, really clear. And I also want to acknowledge that, of course, classism and racism have given you the reason why you have to tell us that, but I don't see those as being values of Claremont at all. And I would really like to do whatever possible to help make that be a horrible relic of the past that none of us identify with anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a conversation I'd love to have. I know we have.
Have it any old time.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'd love to discuss that. I will tell you that I love the fact that I live next door to Claremont. I love Claremont. I love the feel of Claremont. I love the people. I've never had any issues in the city. I did attend Claremont McKenna, and that was back in 1988. And in fact, Mayor Stark, your mom, and I think your mom actually was the president, but don't tell your dad that. It's always just been a great experience for me. I think I'm not thinking in terms of the issues around race and class and gender. I'm thinking particularly around just some fundamental issues around sustainability. Cities like Pomona struggle, and it's something that I've been working on for the last 5 years. And sometimes I think about how we could share how we deliver services, right? I mean, I'm not suggesting that we merge our police departments or figure out fire together, but those are the kinds of, I'm trying to figure out where I can save money so that we can invest it in our children and we can invest it in our families. And my focus in Pomona is on family prosperity and stability. And I want to increase those opportunities for our families. But when you have budgets that are going towards fire and police that are taking an enormous amount of resources, and in some cases, understandably so, it makes it difficult for cities to be able to deliver the kind of services that are needed. And particularly in Pomona, where you don't have parents who may be always in a position to have the additional funds to send their children to swim classes or arts classes, or it's a work in progress for us to figure out how we do that. There's a great DAW Center for the Arts, which helps to do that. The AMOCA, which I know some of you probably access the Ceramic Museum, do some outstanding work. I want to grow that. But let's have an offline conversation around, no need to apologize about anything. I mean, I'm not saying you are, but just we appreciate the relationship that we have with Claremont. And I think it's only growing, at least in my eyes, it's only growing with all of you.
And it's reciprocated. And we need Pomona.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So that's all I wanted to thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Aaron, go ahead whenever you're ready.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
Hi, Tim. It's
Karen.
Karen, Sandoval, former mayor, and I was fairly active on the Tri-City Mental Health Services Board. And I have been very impressed with the efforts that Pomona has taken to assist Tri-City with their permanent supportive housing, and that this wonderful little community that you've set up on West Holt Boulevard to not only provide housing for unfortunate people, but to provide the services that they need in order to sustain them in these various housing, and plus the apartments and everything. And I just wish that Claremont was going to be able to participate in that in our own way, but of course the dirt isn't there. And that's a real challenge. So how do the people in Pomona, other than people who have been serviced by Tri-City, feel about all of Pomona's efforts? I think it's just been fabulous.
Yeah, I think that certainly there's more work to be done. And the pandemic has really highlighted this. It's made it challenging for us in many respects. And let me just explain. I think, is it okay if I call you Karen? Karen?
Sure.
Mayor? Okay. Sure. The city took a bold step to build a Hope for Home which has the capacity to house up to 300. But the goal wasn't to keep people there. It was to stabilize them and to get them the wraparound services they need to get their lives back. And the program has worked. But when the pandemic hit, it meant that we had limited number of beds. Because we couldn't just keep people there and they left and then they come back and then you have to quarantine. It just made it really difficult during the pandemic. And so consequently, our numbers went considerably down, which caused a rise in homelessness on the streets.
Yeah. Oh,
But we're starting to see, because of the vaccine and you know, the herd immunity, that we're getting to a place where we can open up a Hope for Home to more people. And so that's the effort that we're working on. And we've tried to take and some of you are aware, there's a real strong compassionate movement in the city of Pomona, is to approach these challenges with compassion. And we're not trying to criminalize the homeless or seeing some kind of criminal behavior, but what we're really trying to do is to help them get their lives back. And in fact, we have been doing some work, and Jed can probably even speak to this a little bit more, but we've Jed's been really at the forefront of homeless work in the region. And we just got some funding to build some additional units in the city of Pomona and Claremont. And I have to say that I think that Pomona and Claremont are leading the way in the San Gabriel Valley as it relates to addressing homelessness.
Good. Thank you.
Michael?
Hi, Mayor Sandoval. Thank you very much for joining our meeting tonight. And my name's Michael Booth. Everyone calls me Mike. I just had a question. Some of the people on this call are working on developing a public bank in our area, which I think would include Pomona and Claremont and Laverne, although they can clarify that. I may be wrong, but I just wondered what were your thoughts on that? Are you following that? Are you involved in that in any way? How do you feel that Pomona and Claremont and possibly Laverne can pull this off?
Yeah, Michael, first of all, I think it's a great idea. And I've been following it via email. I have not been, and I attended maybe the first couple of meetings. There was a meeting at Amoka that I attended. And in part, the reason that I haven't been involved in it is primarily because of the pandemic and focused on some very basic needs that need to be addressed in the city. So I support it. I have not personally been lately involved in it. There's some folks that I know that are involved in that effort. So I'm following it. I just haven't been engaged in it just simply because I've been involved in a number of other efforts that have been pressing. But I certainly support the idea, and I'm happy to help in any way that's needed.
Thank you.
Other questions, folks? If not, I have a question. Tim, we're going through the RENA allocation housing element development right now, and we have our own sets of challenges and opportunities. It might be helpful for us to hear what you're experiencing. Can you tell us a little bit about your process, what your goal numbers are, what kind of cross currents you're facing, that sort of thing? And then we'll have Merrill after me.
Yeah, that's so I serve on SCAG. I represent I'm on the regional council for San Dimas, Laverne, Claremont, and Pomona. And we just went through a long process of establishing RENA numbers, or what each city is supposed to be committed to building over the course of the next 10 years. And in the case of Pomona, our numbers are about 10,500. And if you were to ask, I think most Pomona residents, I think there's a real commitment to want to build that housing. We've created our corridor specific plan to be able to do that rather easily. So it's a ministerial decision as opposed to a city council decision to build higher density housing. The reality, though, is that it isn't as if the city gets money to build these, to build the housing, right? We rely on developers to come in and to build that housing. There's some units that we get built through the nonprofit sector, but that's a that's not an easy path towards building more housing. And so to me, the fundamental issue, Chris, is we would like to build more housing in the city, but it isn't as if the city has a fund specifically to build housing. And so consequently, when we're asked to build 10,500 units, our question is, okay, well, let's do it. And I think that's one of the biggest complaints of a lot of cities. The other piece of it is that I think there are cities that don't want to build that housing, and they fight it and they resist it. Some people call that NIMBYs, right? And that's why I think the state intervenes and says, no, you need to build this. I don't recall Claremont. I think it may be what, 1,500.
We're at 1711.
Yes, I mean, so you can imagine Pomona, being required to build 10,500 units. That's a huge lift when you're not getting any funding to be able to do that. So it's a bit of a frustrating process. I think there's a sense from some communities like Pomona that it's supposed to fall on communities like Pomona as opposed to suburban-like communities that don't want to see more higher density housing, and they fight it and they resist it. So, I mean, that's what I would say to that, Chris.
Thanks, Tim. Merrill?
Yeah.
Am I unmuted? Nope. Okay, I'm free. My
Hi,
question,
Merrill.
Mayor Sandoval, my question goes back to what Mike introduced back there, and Chris, I was trying to figure out whether I wanted to raise my left hand or right hand, and it took me too long to figure it out. So Chris got in there, but fortunately there was some connection. I'm on the one of the members here who are on the Public Bank Pomona Valley Study Group. And just to let you know, we're not now at present trying to institute anything. Their legislation is still pending in various ways. We want bigger communities to have first shot at doing this so we can learn from their experience. But at some point, it's going to come down to the cities, Pomona, Claremont, Laverne, have to make the decision to join in. And you just made the important point. One of the things the bank can do is help fund cities' housing and other people's housing too. I mean, that's an important thing that the public bank could do that the big banks aren't helping right now. So I just want to assure you, you're not behind anything right now. You're not out of the loop. The loop is sitting there, learning many things and waiting for bigger things to happen outside of us. So
yeah. Thank you, Merrill.
Going.
Thank you. I see Andy and then Carol.
Andy, go ahead.
I guess we're on a tear on this one subject with the bank. Let me just explain one thing that may not be clear to everyone. Every city collects taxes. Every city collects fees. Every city gets passed through of state and federal funds, and they don't spend them instantly. They have to put them in a bank someplace. And right now they're going in big banks. They're going in Citibank and the large banks. And those banks then use that money while they have it for their own profits and for their own priorities. The goal is for the cities to put their money in a public bank. And what we're talking about is San Dimas and Claremont and Pomona to start with in this area. No. And so that money is there. The board of directors of that bank would be appointed by the people in the city councils and what have you. They would be professional bankers. We're not looking to lose money. We're looking for people who can make rational, good decisions. And that money would then be available for public housing. It'd be available for small business support. It would be available for maybe a school remodification or what have you. But it's going to require a major effort, because to think that the big banks aren't going to fight this is crazy. I mean, this is going to mean if this catches on, and this is now, there is a state law in California which now authorizes the creation of up to 12 public banks in California. And there's legislation pending at the federal level, and there's legislation pending in about a dozen other states. So this is real. But Merrill's point is right. The cost of establishing the first bank, of doing the bylaws, of getting it through the state regulatory process and everything else is going to be very expensive. I mean, we're a couple of cities that have already started the process ahead of us, have already invested, a few $100,000 each. And so we're talking about, a not inconsiderable sum of money to get it off the ground. But the potential is for these banks to do what every commercial bank does. For every dollar they have in reserves, they lend out $10. I mean, think of the pool of money that could create in our community. So this is real. And I'm mentioning this because there's much for Tim, but it's for the rest of our membership, because this is an effort that's gonna require some real work over the next few years.
Thank you for that, Andy. Carol? You're up, Carol.
You have to unmute
Carol,
yourself, Carol.
unmute.
That's it. The new cry. You're muted.
I know, I thought I had undone it. Tim, I don't live in Claremont. I live in the unincorporated part of San Bernardino that they call Pomona, which is causing no ends of confusion. But I had been tuning in when you were on a call with the agenda for prophetic faith a few months ago. You had several there, and I believe you were talking about the electric company. Has Pomona started its own utility?
Yeah.
Going to?
Yeah, we have. It's called Pomona Choice Energy. And it's just a second option as opposed to Edison. And it's in its infancy. There's certainly challenges in doing that. I think Claremont, you're also part of a Joint Powers Authority, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Power Alliance.
So Pomona did elect to go to work with a different set of cities than Claremont, and it's in its infancy. There's a huge exit fee cost that the city has to pay, which makes it incredibly challenging to stay competitive. But we're working through that. In fact, we have a community meeting on the 31st to talk about the rates that are increasing at Edison and how that impacts us. And so we've really tried to do the best job that we can do to be transparent and honest and forthright. But we've always seen this as a long-term commitment, so that we ultimately, whatever savings that we get from doing this, that we can put it right back into helping particularly our lowest income community members.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I believe we have time for one more question. Would anybody like to get the last question in?
No one else does.
Hugh Wire has his hand up.
Go ahead.
Hi, Hugh.
I got interested when we first came to Claremont about the plight of the library in Pomona. And I was wondering how it's going now. And it seems to me one area where somehow our Claremont colleges could have some kind of hand in making that, whatever your dreams are for the library, come about. But I haven't stayed with the issue. I haven't followed up. So I don't know how it is going now.
Yeah,
so
the library. So just three things. One, the roof's going to be replaced. The indoor facilities there have been some improvements that are currently being made, but I think probably the most important thing is the increase of hours. So we're looking to increase the number of hours at the library so that more people, so that people have access to, particularly in the morning and on the weekends. So we're seeing some improvements coming to our library system. And Chris, before you guys go, do you mind if I just say something real quick?
Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, just so you all know, one of the things that I'm working on in Pomona, and that I'll be bringing forward soon, and it is somewhat tied to the money that we're receiving from the federal government, which is a basic universal income. I've been following very carefully what's happened in Stockton, what's happening in Oakland, and Compton and other cities. But it's something that I'm going to be working towards to bring that to Pomona, looking at it as a three-year period that would be at $500 to 250 families. And one of the things that we did in the city, I created a COVID-19 action committee that was made up of over 50 plus community leaders from different organizations to address COVID-related issues. And one of the things that we created right at the get-go was the Pomona Compassion Fund, which raised $250,000 because we were concerned that when federal dollars came, that it would not help our undocumented population. we were able to figure that out. And so we have this money that I would ultimately like to grow this Pomona Compassion Fund to expand this idea of a universal basic income, which I know a number of people have talked about, but it's something that I'd like to see in the city of Pomona and something I'll be fighting for over the next few months. So.
Okay, everybody, let's thank Mayor Sandoval for appearing before us today. Thank you so much, Tim.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. And I see a lot of familiar faces when I'm out in Claremont. I think I've seen some of you, especially that Jed Leon and Ed Reese and Mayor Stark.
Yes, and speaking of those three, I've been reminded by Sam to properly acknowledge our city council members and mayor. So my apologies for not
Chris,
properly doing that at the beginning.
I've acknowledged them like 6 times already. They've got enough PR.
So thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
And that includes former mayors as well, even though there are a dime a dozen.
Appreciate the
Okay,
invitation. Take care, everyone. Have a wonderful evening or night, I should say.
Thank you, Tim.
thanks, Tim.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, so next we turn to the business portion of the meeting. And so my suggestion is that we try to motor through the old business as briskly as possible so that we can get to the new business. I understand we have a lot of resolutions. So give me a moment here as I navigate to the agenda, and then we will proceed from there. Hold on. Okay, so basically it's, we need a motion to approve the agenda, and then we need a motion to approve the minutes. So would anybody like to introduce a motion to approve the agenda for today?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion passes. You were also sent the minutes of our February 21st, 2021 meeting. May we have a motion, please, to approve?
So moved.
Second? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Reports. I'm not going to make a report for the president on Sam's behalf. Carol, do you have anything that you would like to say in your role as treasurer?
Yes, I would like to. First of all, our balance in our bank account right now is $7,305. We just supported with a donation of $800 the Latina Roundtable Cesar Chavez breakfast that was last Friday, I think it was. And we had some big deposits come in from some folks that we were able to buy a table for the club of $800. So that was a good thing, and with our name on stuff there. That's really all. We've had the normal in and out of paying some people who've done things for us and gotten lots of, I know what I wanted to say. We've gotten, many people have, about half of our members have paid their dues, but we do have some, I think because we didn't have that Christmas party that we all like so well, and where we badger you until you give us money. But if you haven't paid your dues for the 2021 year, we would welcome that. And if you need help doing that, or if you want to find out whether you're on the group that has or has not, I'll put my email address in the chat here and you can contact me.
Okay, thanks, Carol. Any questions for Carol before we move forward? Okay, not hearing any. I'll be very brief in my capacity as Vice President for Programs. On April 9th, we're having Victor Quiroz from the United Auto Workers talking about legislation, human rights, and the United Auto Workers. That's for our monthly luncheon meeting at noon on Friday, April 9th. After that, we have two members who are on this call right now. We have our own Andy Winnick at the end of April, who will be doing a deep dive into the 2020 election results. And then at the beginning of May, we have Janice Elliott, who's on this call as well. She's city council person for Upland. And then at the end of May, we'll have Senator Connie Leyva joining us. Okay, Andy, anything about membership?
Just two. One, you mentioned one of them already. Janice Elliott, who is active in Upland, has joined our club. There's some conflicts with meeting times periodically, but hopefully we'll be seeing her. And I think she was here earlier. I don't see her right now. So that's one new member. And the other new member is Carol Wilner. And she's joining us. She lives here in Claremont. And so hopefully both of them will become active in our club. So we have two new members.
Okay.
Thanks, Andy. Mike, you're up next, corresponding secretary.
Thank you. I really don't have anything to report at this time.
Okay. Merle, thank you, Mike. Merle, your issues and Voorhees voice.
Some of the results of the issues will be later on in the program. And the issue, the Voorhees voice, I'm working on busily right now. It should be out again, a big fat one, on the 1st of April.
Okay. Anything else, Merle, or is that it?
That's it for tonight.
Okay. Thanks, Merle. Let's move on to new business. Debbie's not here tonight, I don't believe, for political strategy. So we'll move forward. Now, under new business, the first item up is the report on the Cadiz Water Project. And I'm trying to figure out who was going to introduce that. I just got this
It's either me or
meeting
Pam.
responsibility about 5 minutes before the meeting. So I don't know who's doing this.
I think I am.
Diane?
No, I am.
Okay, Andy, go ahead.
Andy's got it.
Yeah, real quickly, some of you know about this, some of you don't. Basically, this refers to an aqueduct that runs under the Joshua Tree and Mojave Desert. It's a major and very ancient aqueduct. All of the springs, the natural springs in that entire area come from that aqueduct.
Aquifer.
Oh, well, the
Aquifer.
aquifer, I'm sorry.
Aquifer, yeah.
You're absolutely right, aquifer. It's not an aqueduct, the visions of Rome. Okay, anyhow, aquifer. The issue is that a venture capital group has bought water rights to that aquifer some years ago. They've been trying to peddle it, and we have been trying to block it for a variety of reasons. One is the water is heavily contaminated with cadmium and is not really safe. Two, it really would undercut and damage a number of sacred Indian areas, and the Native American communities are very opposed. And three, it's an environmental disaster in terms of the springs that it feeds, that it couldn't feed if that water were being bled off. The reason we're getting involved with it, a few of us, not a few, but a number of us, is that the Three Valleys Water District, which is up here on Pomona Avenue, has undertaken, quote, to do a study of the aqueduct and the feasibility of our feeding, buying water from it. The problem is that they're pretending that they're doing the study, but the Cadiz venture capitalists are paying for it, and Three Valleys is simply a pass-through for the money. And as far as I'm concerned, that's a rather corrupt little piece of behavior. And second of all, the person they have hired, the agency they have hired to do this study, is someone who has worked with Cadiz for years, has done a number of other studies, and has always come out in favor of it unqualifiedly. So this is not by any stretch of the imagination a independent study. So a number of us have been attending Three Valleys Water District meetings and trying to get them to sever their relationship with this supposed research project and to sever their relationship with Cadiz. So that's the background. That's what the issue is, and where that comes out, we don't know. The state has already passed a law that says that they can't go forward until they get some study that says it, satisfies all the environmental and other things. That's apparently what they're trying to do, but the game playing they're playing with that study is a corrupt study. I'll stop with that.
Okay, thank you, Andy, for that report. Mindful of the agenda, which is quite packed, I'd invite any brief factual type questions that anybody might have for Andy. If not, then we'll proceed forward. Does anybody have questions of that sort for Andy?
Andy, what's the next step?
That's a good question. A number of organizations, including the Char Miller with the environmental program at Pomona College and the National Parks Conservancy and others have been working on this. I guess the question is, so far we are not getting any feedback or response from Three Valleys. So the question is, and I don't have an answer to it, how do we get them to respond to, people have been doing public comment and so forth, but how do we actually get them to respond? The appearance, I don't know if it's true, but the appearance is that they're just ignoring us.
Louis, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, if the aquifer has already been established as being heavily polluted with cambium, why are people still fighting over that water, and how would it benefit Claremont to have a piece of it?
We don't think it would, and the answer is they'd make a lot of money on it. I mean, this is not unrelated to the game that we saw played, before when we tried to buy our own water company. The way the state law is set up is the people selling you water get to make a profit of, about an 8.5% profit on the water. So the more expensive the water is they buy, the more profit they make. And this venture seems to be being pushed by a group of, venture capitalists who got to secure the rights to the water. Whether we can, the question is, can if someone comes up with a study that says, oh, it's all fine, and tries to sell it to us, I assume they'll buy it. And so I don't really understand the mechanisms. What I would suggest maybe what we do is Char Miller, who heads the environmental analysis program at Pomona College, has written 2 or 3 articles on this whole topic. Maybe, Chris, you might want to think about seeing if Char would like to come and talk to us more about the project and about, what we can do to try to stop it. Everything I know is, quite frankly, secondhand. This is not my area of expertise particularly.
Pam, were you going to add something?
Well, I would add that we do have an elected representative, and that's Brian Bocock. And to date, he's been pretty responsive to the residents of Claremont and the residents of his district that have come forward. Ex-Mayor Joe Lyon has spoken against the study. Current Mayor Jennifer Stark has spoken against the study. Several of us in the residents have gone in. So I think it's time for that, since there's an election coming up, that we should be looking at finding someone who would actually listen to the constituents.
Okay, thanks, Pam.
Yep.
Unless I hear any objections, I'm going to move forward on the agenda to the next item. So give me a moment here. Okay, so there's a bylaws change that's being proposed. Give me a second here as I navigate to it. And just a moment here. Okay, so Merle, I can only see a few people on my screen, and you're one of them. Give me a thumbs up if you could see currently the DCC change in DCC bylaws regarding terms of office.
This is not the full statement. Full statement says every elected officer of the club can serve consecutive terms as long as they're elected, except for the president, who is limited to 2 terms unless the membership decides that he or she should be extended another term.
Okay.
How is that different from what we had? Explain how that's different from what we have now.
Oh, I see. Well, that's what the recommended change. It didn't. All I wanted to add was the part about the other officers. The one on Chris's screen here, the recommended change is exactly right, except for is missing the first sentence.
I think I can add a little to that.
the current terminology is up at the top there. It's struck out and highlighted with red.
Right.
Right now, we are violating our bylaws because we have excellent officers. I'll say Carol and Carol Lee out loud, who do a wonderful job, and we let them serve past 2 terms, which is technically a violation of our bylaws. So we want to fix that and allow people that are doing a good job to continue to serve, while recognizing the leadership could turn over periodically at the top, at least. And so this is going to allow the president to serve 2 terms unless he or she is extended by a vote of the membership.
And how would that work? Consecutive terms.
So Ivan, in all, I think we need to do this procedurally. So let's get a motion in a second, then we'll discuss, and then we'll vote. So do we
I
have,
move that we accept the executive board's recommendation for a change in the bylaws.
do we have a second?
Second.
Ivan, go ahead. Do you have a question or a comment on this?
Well, I'm just wondering, that as modified, it says shall, unless extended by a vote of the membership. Does that mean that we will have a vote? Should Joe Blow be allowed to serve for another term, yes or no? And then and then that would be approved, or how would that work?
You mean, would he automatically become, let's have a new term?
Well, no, let's say someone, Joe Blow, has served 2 consecutive terms, and then unless extended by a vote, what does that mean? Other than that, Joe Blow is voted in as president yet again for the 3rd time.
Yes.
That's all it means.
That's
It means
exactly right.
basically that Joe Blow could be allowed to serve as president for as many times as Joe Blow can be elected.
That's correct.
That's what it
That's what
means.
I'm saying.
So there is no limitation on how many times a person can be elected to
No
president.
legal limitation, no bylaws limitation.
There is
Why not just say there's no limitation? Because every time Joe Blow comes up for a vote, he or she is elected or isn't elected. And so who needs this?
Ivan,
This looks like a fig leaf.
Fair point, Ivan. Mel, go ahead.
I-
You want to get in? I think we need to have people raise hands and then I'll recognize people in order. So go ahead, Mel. It's best if you do it electronically.
Ivan makes a very good point, and I think it should be clarified to unless extended to 1 additional term by vote of the membership, so that this is allows a 3rd term, but not more.
Could you make that as a motion, Mel?
Well, Louis had his hand up. I mean, it would need to be formally an amendment. So
Yeah,
Louis,
I'll make it a friendly motion. I think it's a friendly motion. Extended to 1 additional term. Insert 1 additional term between extended and by.
Why not, Jen, just write the thing so that it says no more than 3 terms?
okay, we need an amendment and we need a second, but so Mel, are you proposing an amendment is my question.
Yes, I think it's a friendly amendment.
I'm going to rule that it requires a vote because it does not seem to me, I mean, it seems to me that there are any number of amendments one can make on this, and this one is going to have to require a vote.
Okay, I make a motion for an amendment to the motion to insert the words 1 additional term between the words extended and by in the recommended change.
Okay, so Carolee, I'm assuming that you're taking the notes on this. Is this correct? Or am I incorrect? Okay, so we got Louis and then Karen. Okay, so I guess the question is, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Louis, then Karen.
I want to remind our membership that we already have at the state level term limits, which we find somewhat disastrous. Term limits are best expressed by the will of the body. You don't need a law to limit somebody's term if he is not fit to serve, or he or she is not fit to serve. And having a law will not allow that person to serve if the membership is not willing.
Okay, thank you, Louis. Karen, I'm going to ask you to just hold on for just 1 second. Mel, what was the wording here? I'm going to put it right on the screen so everyone can see. Unless extended by one more term.
Extended for one more term.
By a vote of the membership.
Thank you. That's
Okay,
correct.
so Mel, give me a thumbs up if the amendment you can see on the screen. I just want to make sure that everyone can see it.
I can see it.
Excellent. Karen, you're up.
Well, it seemed to me that it was consecutive term, which is the word that you might want to use.
It's there.
And, oh, is it? I didn't hear it or see it.
It's there.
Sorry, thank you.
Okay, I need to screen some more. Anybody else? I'm going back and forth between two screens. Okay, so we have the motion as amended. Can we vote on the amendment, please? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
I'm opposed.
Okay. I'm going to rule that the motion carries. That's for the amendment. Now we got to vote on the whole thing, okay? The whole thing with the amendment. Okay. All in favor of this whole text, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Okay, I'm going to rule that the ayes have it. Okay, so there you got it. Next item on the agenda, please give me a moment, please, as I'm navigating. It's the HR 151 condemning anti-Asian sentiment. Give me a second, please.
Second.
No. Okay, I want to apologize because I only learned that I would be running the meeting about 4 minutes before the meeting. And so I need to navigate to find the text. So bear with me, please, and I'll put it up on the screen.
You're doing a great job, Chris.
Yes, you are. So glad it's not me.
I feel the same way.
Try anything else.
In the future, we need a polling feature in our Zoom that allows us to quickly vote and have a tally for us. But we can do it by hands tonight because we don't have a huge number.
Are you kidding? We have like 12, don't we?
18.
Oh, we.
Okay, folks, I'm going to be sharing the screen, but this was what was attached in the packet. It's the actual piece of legislation, the actual resolution, right? The House resolution here.
Chris,
Merrill, I see your hand up. Can you see it?
I thought Debbie was going to be the one who was responsible for introducing a motion concerning this. This has been introduced in the House Resolution 151. If you notice, the second signer there is Judy Chu, second sponsor. So what I'm going to do is what I thought Debbie was going to do, recommend that the club support House Resolution 151 concerning anti-Asian sentiments, as it says there.
Second.
Yes.
Okay, is there any discussion?
No brainer. Let's do it.
Not hearing any discussion, we'll close discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Okay, again, apologize. Give me a moment here. The next is the public bank, AB 1177. Okay, just a moment, please. I'm assuming that either Andy or Merrill would like to introduce this.
I will.
Just a second, and I'll have it on the screen for you.
This resolution and all others should have been submitted, and I think were submitted to the membership for antecedent viewing. This is a statement concerning, it's called public banking. It's not the same sort of thing that Andy and I and Tim Sandoval were talking about. It's about creating an institution known as the California Bank for serving those individual people in California who do not have a bank account. If you are now waiting for your relief check, your stimulus check, whatever you wish to call it, many of us have it immediately deposited in our accounts, or we can go to ATMs, we can get loans, we can do all kinds of things. 25% of Californians do not have banks for a variety of reasons, most of all because they're uninteresting to the major banks. And so what this AB 1177 does is create a bank for the unbanked, as the term is, or even the underbanked, but unbanked is best. And it is part of a nationwide phenomenon trying to see that everyone has all the access to financial institutions that we, who have a great deal more money, have as a matter of course. It is connected to postal banking. It says there's something down at the bottom down there. So Chris, I move that the Democratic Club of Claremont support this statement and distribute it to our elected representatives.
Second.
Okay, motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Many civilized countries have such banks, and it's overdue, and California can help lead. It's a
Yes.
great motion.
I do think so.
Some uncivilized countries like North Dakota.
No, it's different.
They
It's
actually
different
have
than
one.
Dakota's.
It's a different institution, I believe, the State Bank of North Dakota, than what is involved here. It's a
No,
much
that's
more
right. It's a
comprehensive thing than what's
Different
proposing
institution.
here.
This is aimed at getting rid of check cashing services and similar sorts of things.
Yeah.
Those are terrible, or they plunder the poverty of the poor.
Exactly.
I think we're ready for the vote, Chris.
Okay, not here. Is there any further discussion? Not hearing any. I'm going to close debate. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Next is the approval of the statement regarding the filibuster, or an anti-filibuster stand.
Another no-brainer.
Yeah.
Let's see how it's worded. Come on,
This is a
give it a
state,
chance.
it too was distributed. It's very short. It's a statement about our opposition to the continuation of the practice of having the filibuster in the US Senate, recommending that the Democratic Party suck it up and get rid of the filibuster, or at least get around it in whatever short-term way as possible. But
Okay, just a second. I located it. Sorry about that, folks.
I was just filling in the dead space.
Just a second here, and I will share the screen. Okay, Merrill, give me thumbs up if you could see it.
I can see it. It's there.
Okay, excellent.
Let me just add,
Merrill, how about if you move it and then let's second it
I'll
and
move.
then we'll discuss.
I
it.
move that the Democratic Club of Claremont accept this statement calling for the end of the filibuster.
We have a second.
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 Motion's been seconded. Is there any discussion?
I just want to say one thing. The people who accept this filibuster say, well, it's important to protect the rights of the minority. Let me point out that this means it's a minority veto. It's an anti-democratic institution in that respect. Secondly, the Senate is already an anti-democratic institution. So we're piling things on top of each other. And so the filibuster is, since we can't get rid of 2 senators per state, we might as well get rid of the filibuster, which will help some.
It's more conservative now than it was in 1787.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is true.
Is there any
I
other
think we're ready
discussion?
for the vote.
It was too conservative for 1787, so.
I think we're ready for the vote, Chris.
Mel, I want to acknowledge your statement. I hear you loudly and clearly, but I am going to check in with everybody. Is there any other
course.
discussion? Okay, not hearing anything on a closed discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, please say no. Okay, the motion carries. Next is a approval of a resolution in support of ending the influence of the fossil fuel industry over the California Democratic Party. Okay, just a sec.
Are you feeling cynical there?
Don
Ivan?
Quixote night at the Democratic Club.
Oh.
Great.
Did Bobby write this one?
Yes, I'm done for the night. You're on, Pam.
Is Pam there?
I'm here. Hello?
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I missed that.
Pam, just wait a second.
You're-
I'm navigating through like
Okay.
17 documents. I think this is the one.
I understand. Well, we're actually pulling the one that the resolution on vaccines because best case scenario, Newsom is pursuing a very aggressive vaccination program. And before
Okay.
we were objecting to the fact of opening schools before we had people vaccinated, but like I say, best case scenario, it's become obsolete.
The one that's before us, Pam, is about the fossil fuels.
Oh, I'm sorry. Somebody said something. I thought somebody was wanting me to speak. I
Okay,
apologize.
Mel, give me a thumbs up if you could see at the top here, resolution in support of ending the influence of the fossil fuel. Okay, so who's introducing this one?
If Pam isn't, then no one else is.
I believe that it's Sam, and I had heard that he was on. Sam Burnt.
Yeah,
is he
Sam was
there?
here earlier. And his, okay, his Hollywood Square is still here. I'm asking him to unmute. But he's not unmuting. Okay, well, I am going to assume that the voting members here have reviewed this beforehand, and so I'm going to ask for someone to move it and to second it, and then we will discuss and vote. So does anybody
move.
move this? Andy moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? I see people looking like they're reading the screen. Are you, if this is a case of first impression, then let me see if I could put more of it on the screen. There, the whole thing should be on the screen now.
Except for the sponsors at the end.
Yeah, the sponsors are Sam Burnt, who's on this call, but not unmuting. And you can see Pam is a co-signer. Pam is on the call. So I'm going to scroll back down so that you could see it. Is there any discussion? Not hearing any, I will close discussion and we will proceed to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes. Next up.
I want to report back when we've achieved that.
Yeah.
Right.
Forget it.
Next one is the approval of a resolution in support of banning single-use plastics by 2030. Please bear with me as I find the document and pull it up. Okay, so my hope is that this can be on the screen. Let's see, let me call on someone different. Mel's giving me a thumbs up. Thank you. In case you're wondering, I do this with my students because sometimes I think I have something on the screen and it's not on the screen. They tell me. Okay, so Pam, I'm assuming you're on this or no?
No, that's Ellen Finkelpearl and Sam Burnt are the authors of that. But I endorse it.
Tell us about it.
I sponsor it.
Well, let's have a motion. Someone move and second.
So
Move it.
Second.
Okay, Mel moves, Karen seconds. Discussion.
Tell us about it, Pam.
I'm sorry, I'm losing my place because he has so many. Which one is this one again?
Plastic.
Is the
Single-use
the single use? Yeah, okay,
Single-use
single-use plastics. Gee, I don't have. I'm in the desert right now, so I can't see the screen. But the resolution has a lot of research about single use and just the California Democratic Party should support the banning of this. It's a huge environmental issue. So I think it's an issue that most of us are pretty familiar with.
Pam, is it mostly plastics that are part of food packaging?
Exactly.
Water bottles.
I'm sorry, what? I'm
Mayor?
not hearing.
About plastic bottles was the comment.
Foam, was it?
But
Okay, I'm going to jump in here.
maybe-
Are there any other questions
Chris,
or comments about this?
Chris, can you just read the therefore of the resolution?
Sure.
Therefore
Says,
be it resolved.
Therefore,
I think that might clarify.
Therefore be it resolved that the California Democratic Party supports an outright ban of single-use plastics that are made to be used once before they are thrown away by the year 2030 at the local, state, and federal level, and encourages such bodies to enact enforcement mechanisms and incremental legislation to meet this time frame. And then there's a distribution list.
Call the question.
Okay, not hearing any further discussion. Close discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Next up.
How many more are there?
Good question.
4. I count 4.
I think
4, I guess.
this, I think this is it. She
This
pulled
is
one.
the approval of resolution in support of President Biden canceling all student debt by executive order before September 30th, 2021.
Move the question. Someone second it?
Let me pull. Give me a second to pull the document up.
Pam, these last four resolutions were presented before the ADM people, is that correct?
Yes, these resolutions will go to the resolution committee at the KDM convention that's at the end of April. And so that body will receive all of these resolutions, and what they commonly do is some are reaffirmations, some they get a couple similar, and so they'll put them together, and some they rewrite, and some they just approve outright. They usually pick the top 10 that are most that represent, and then that goes to a big floor vote.
Okay, folks, Louis, give me a thumbs up if you could see it. Does it say, can you see on the screen, resolution in support of President Biden? Good. Okay. So we'll need a mover and a seconder, but the therefore is be it resolved that the California Democratic Party recognize blah, 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 Secretary of Education's legal authority through the Higher Education Act of 1965 to broadly cancel student debt, and calls on President Biden to direct Secretary of Education Cordona by executive order to administratively cancel all student debt before payments resume on September 30th, 2021. Do we have a mover?
So moved.
Seconder?
Second.
Karen seconding. Okay, I'm sorry. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Not hearing any, I'll close discussion and we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Okay, I think we're in the home stretch here. Next up is the approval of resolution in support of reducing anthropogenic carbon dioxide emissions by 45% of 2010 levels by 2030.
Aye.
In 8 years?
What does whatever the word is, genic mean?
Means man-made.
Anthropogenic means created by man. Man-made.
Human-made.
Or women?
Human-made. That's right.
Yeah. Excuse my language.
Thank
I was
you,
born
Ida.
in the last century. Human-made. Thank you.
Okay, so this says resolution, well, okay, I said it before. It's up there. It says, therefore be it resolved that the CDB supports reducing anthropogenic carbon dioxide emissions by 45% of 2010 levels by the year 2030. Do we have a mover?
Move.
Move it.
Ivan moves, Mel seconds. Is there any discussion?
I think it's a good idea.
I think so too, just to be able to say it.
Me too.
Is there any further discussion? Not hearing any, I'll close discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions?
No.
Resolution passes. Okay, we're at a one-screen meeting now. Let's see. Next one, Pam, these are both related to public schools, so you let me know if either of these need to be pulled. One is approval of a resolution reserving public funds for public schools accountability.
That one we are submitting, yes.
Okay.
So we're seeking endorsement for that one.
Okay, so give me a moment here.
Oh, Jesus.
Second. Okay, so at the top, disallowing public dollars for privately managed private and charter schools that lack public accountability. I'll read the resolved clause. Therefore, be it resolved that the California Democratic Party supports reserving federal public school funding solely for schools that operate under the oversight of publicly elected school boards dedicated to budgetary operational transparency and public access to governance, as well as to schools that adhere to education codes ensuring safety, equal access, non-biased privacy. Further, the CDP supports a moratorium on schools accepting public funding designated for public schools, as well as public funding for small businesses, an option not extended to traditional public schools. Okay. Do we have a mover and a seconder?
I'll move.
Okay. Carol moves. Karen seconds. Looks like Mel has brought a new member into the club. So Andy, make sure you sign him up. Okay, is there any discussion?
What is CARES? It says the CARES.
The CARES Act, that was President Trump's stimulus package back in May.
Oh, well, we all had a mixed opinion of that.
Yeah. Well, there have been other resolutions prior to this for reserving public funds strictly for public schools. But the two stimulus packages, one from President Trump and one for President Biden, carved out funds for charter schools and carved out funds for private schools and really religious schools. So it's that gets into the issue of a separation of church and state.
Are charter schools not public schools?
Well, the thing about charter schools is that they are able to bypass things like ed codes, an elected school board, and budget transparency and all those kind of things. So they call themselves a public school because they take public funds, but actually they're taking public funds, but they're not accountable to the public, which is the big central issue. And in this case, with the CARES, charter schools under President Trump were able to take the public school fund money of CARES and then also apply for they also took $5.7 billion in PPP loans for small businesses. So basically saying they got to double dip, something that was not possible for a traditional public. And so here they're operating in this gray area where they say there's public, they say they're public, but then they also operate as a private small business.
But they also, Pam, don't they also operate on properties that are owned by private companies and that it allows private money to come into the process that shouldn't be in the first place?
Yeah, actually, you bring up a really good point. And there's a big study that just came out from NPE, and I'm National Public Education Network, and they're finding that Pearson, who is the big testing company, have managed to set up nonprofits so that the charter schools seem to operate as a nonprofit, but then they're funneling the profits to Pearson, which is the big guy, big giant corporation. So, yeah, and there's all kinds of funny business about who owns property and who doesn't, and then a lot of them go belly up, and then it's public money has gone to buy this property, but then this property is not turned back over to the public. So it's the Wild West. So there's as many permutations and egregious loopholes that each individual charter is able to do that it's really hard to keep track of. Yeah.
Betsy DeVos's name is on it. We don't want it. I mean, we want her against hers.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
If Betsy DeVos has her name on this, definitely don't want.
Yeah, I know that's the easy one, but then we have to look down in this resolution to actually that Chuck Schumer and made a fancy deal with Randy Weingarten of American Federation Teachers, and they gave $2.75 million to private schools in this most recent stimulus package that came out. It's a little bit of pork that they were.
Yeah, part of what this was,
Okay.
2.75 billion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Karen wants to get in. So Karen, then Andy.
Sure.
And then I don't see any other hands up, but I'm still scanning. I know Ed needed to get back in, so Ed's back in. That's good. Go ahead, Karen, then Andy.
I'm a fifth generation teacher on my mother's side of the family, all in public schools. And I am completely in favor of not having any money that's supposed to be for public schools going anywhere but to public schools. And thank you, Pam.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate your support.
Andy, you're up.
Yeah, just to explain, not that I'm feeling particularly supportive. Apparently, when confronted on this, Biden, who of course is Catholic and sort of supportive of the Catholic schools, made the point when questioned about this that in this particular case, with his stimulus money, the issue is you're not going to build new schools and you're not going to move these kids and you're not going to hire different teachers in the next 6 weeks. The point is before the money runs out, we've got to reopen these schools and get all of these schools working so that the parents can go back to work and the kids have a school to go to. We can fight the fight later about reallocating money and closing down these schools. But as you're trying to reopen after the pandemic, is not the time to cut these schools off without money. That's their argument. So you can do what you like with it. And by the way, apparently Schumer supported it because of a whole series of Orthodox Jewish schools in Crown Heights in Brooklyn.
Yeah,
So
actually the bulk of the schools that got the money are not Catholic schools, but yes, they were the Orthodox Jewish schools. Yeah.
Why would that be? There are many more Catholic schools than Jewish schools.
Don't ask me.
It's kind of a backroom deal, really. What happened with the Biden thing? It was kind of something that slipped in. They were managing to slip in. The other rationale would be that they serve underserved students as well. But there's a big problem with funding religious schools, actually.
Yes, there is.
Big fundamental constitutional problem.
Yep.
with funding.
Smart kid.
Yeah.
Call
So,
the
yeah,
question.
so
Call the question. Yeah.
Is there any other discussion? Not hearing any, I will close discussion and we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? One opposed. And abstentions.
Aye.
I'll abstain.
Okay, I hear 2 abstentions, 3 abstentions. Okay, I think we're going to need to go through a count here. Okay, so I get 3 abstentions and I get 1 no. All in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
aye.
all opposed? Okay, 1 opposed and then rest abstentions, 3.
Aye.
Okay, I call it in favor. It passes. And last but not least, we
Thank you,
have,
Mel, for bringing Bernie.
Yeah. Bernie asked, are we going to have a resolution supporting Governor Newsom against the recall?
we don't have any on this agenda, but there is
Oh, okay.
an opportunity to make announcements, Mel, and if you have some tactical operations that you're heading up, you could let us know about them then. The final resolution before we get to the announcements would be approval of a resolution redirecting school funds from school police to health and mental health. So that's the last resolution. Just a moment and I will navigate to it. Okay, so this is to redirect the resolved clause says, therefore be it resolved that the CDP supports redirecting federal, state, regional K-12 school funding from school policing towards a network of wraparound services that include nurses, mental health counselors, school psychologists, social workers.
Move the question.
Oh, wait,
Well, I mean,
move. Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Karen is our reliable second this evening. Is there a second? Any discussion?
Chris, could we see who other the co-authors are down there? Is cut off after justly.
Yeah, Tina, Josue,
Uh,
Steve Gibson.
Okay.
and I'm the unofficial authoress also.
Thank you, Pam.
Hmm.
Is there any discussion now that we've had it moved and seconded?
May I just point out, this is, I agree with it, but this is a very contentious issue, unlike some of the others in the Democratic Party.
Would you like to explain why it's contentious,
Because
Merrill?
lots of more centrist Democrats than we think it's a good thing to have the police on campus.
Is it because they're concerned about school shootings, or is it because they think that students need a policeman to keep them in line?
It's normally rationalized, including here, strongly here in Claremont by some of our, co-residents here, that it's a school safety issue. That's the typical argument. The only other argument I've ever heard is that, it teaches students that some policemen are nice and they can talk to them, and teaches respect for the police. Just as a matter of information, in Claremont, it costs $150,000 for one policeman. The money is split between the school board and the city, and for that price, we could get, it's sad but true, 3 or 4 mental health counselors where we don't have a single one. And so, just the local ramification of this is to suggest we reallocate those funds. And that's being proposed also at the state level.
As I said, I'm in favor of it, but I do just want to point out, unlike some things like the single-use plastic things, this one really is contentious and.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Split Democratic Party down the middle.
Okay, I'm gonna jump in here.
If I
Merrill?
would guess, one of the important points is the claim is that Chris lost the school board election precisely because he raised questions about having the police there. That the assertion was that the majority of people want the police on the campus.
Okay, Merrill, I'm going to intervene here. We've got a lot of people playing devil's advocate. And I think if you're going to speak in favor, if that's really your view. And if you're going to speak opposed if there's
I'm
really.
just trying to point out, I don't want this taken lightly.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Okay, let's close discussion then. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions?
I'm going to abstain because I hope that this will be an issue that comes before council.
Fair enough.
Good.
Okay, noted. Carolee, you're still on the call. If you would kindly note that Mayor Stark abstained on this.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. I can't speak for the group. I'll speak for myself, but I think resolution fatigue has set in.
May I interject something here, Chris, about that? The reason we have never had this many resolutions we voted on before. And the reason is very interesting. So many of these are directed toward KDEM. They're not locally generated ones for just the club. And the reason, what's behind that is we've become much more important in KDEM than we've ever been before. And people are asking us to support resolutions now, which have never been asked before.
Okay, thank you, Merrill. Mike?
Yeah, and I just want to amplify that. Understand that these resolutions are a way for us in our assembly district to support our delegation, our delegation to the California Democratic Party, and to influence the Constitution, the platform of the California Democratic Party. And, it's a way to, let them know that we here in Claremont and in Assembly District 41 support these important issues. These are what are important to us. And this is an opportunity for us to have some influence on that. Now, obviously, we could be idealistic about it. It's not necessarily, not everything is going to necessarily work out, but it's just a way for our voice to be heard and for people to know, in Sacramento and in the Democratic Party, the California Democratic Party, how we feel. So I really appreciate the time that we took to consider these resolutions and the positive, the affirmative votes that we had on them, because I think it's important to support the people. And having gone through been a delegate, I understand, a little bit about it just from being on the inside. So I just say thank you to Sam and Pam and Tina and Josue, and they spend a lot of time on these things. I don't think people understand. I mean, I would, if I had time, be spending more with them on these things because it's that important. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Here, here.
Thank you.
Well
Thank
said,
you.
Mike. And Pam is definitely one of the movers and shakers here. Pam and Tina and Josue. So thank you, Pam. Okay.
Thank you.
We are at our last item on the agenda, which is announcements. So does anybody have any announcements that they would care to make at this point? Andy, go ahead.
Yeah, what was the Rancho Cucamonga Democratic Club, which is now calling themselves the Inland Valley Democratic Club, is sponsoring a forum on April 8th. So it's a week from now, a little more than a week from now, on the issue of maintaining the strength of the Democratic Party as we discuss the issues of progressive Democrats and liberal Democrats on a wide range of issues. I'll be moderating that discussion. Merrill is going to be doing a sort of a historical introduction to sort of that history of the liberal progressive split in the Democratic Party going back to Roosevelt to today. And then they've chosen 3 or 4 speakers, and there'll be basically an hour of the various speakers talking about these issues, and then a question and answer period. And what we've done is we've sort of, in a sentence or two, outlined the liberal versus the progressive position on about 10 major issues, and that would be part of the discussion. And this is not meant to be a debate or beating up on each other, but rather hopefully to get some clarification on the differences of approach to a fairly broad range of issues. So you all should be getting the announcement about it. It's obviously a Zoom meeting still, and that's at 7 o'clock in the evening on the 8th of April.
Okay, thank you, Andy and Merrill, for heading that up. Mel, you're up. And then Jen,
Yeah,
did you raise your hand, Jen?
I
Okay.
I put a couple of items in the chat. Tomorrow at 1 o'clock, quite soon. Tomorrow at 1 o'clock, the interim superintendent of schools and the president of the Claremont School Board will be speaking on Zoom at the University Club. And if anyone would like to join that gathering, you're welcome to be my guest. Just email me. I put my email in the chat, and if you don't already have it. So please feel free to join us. And of course, Tim Sandoval, if you want more of Mayor Tim, like I do, we've invited him to speak at the University Club, and he's going to be presenting late in April. So please join us. Those are all in the chat.
Other announcements? Okay, not seeing any. Before I close, let me just say, I very much appreciate your patience as I had to navigate through a lot of these documents, and I know it probably was tedious as I was doing it, but I just want to say thank you very much. I don't know if you noticed, there were a couple Zoom bombers, and I apologize for not keeping them out. At one point, Bernie Sanders Zoom bombed our meeting, and Don Rickles also was in here for a while too. I don't know if you noticed. So I apologize, but I guess, if you're going to be Zoom bombed, hell, let's have Bernie Sanders and Don Nichols, right?
You did a great job, Chris.
Well done, Chris.
Sure did. Good job.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, second.
Second.
No,
A second.
don't need a second. on
Don't need a
adjournment.
second. Okay, all in favor?
Get rid of it.
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
Okay. Goodbye, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Be well.
Stay well.
Goodbye. Thank you, everybody.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.